here with Charlie Saccarelli, who I've answered who you are. Let's roll into this quick bio questions, Charlie. Can you tell me what made you pursue optical?
So my parents started Chadwick Optical in 1980, so I've never really not been involved in optical. But the cool thing, so we started as a contract lab doing like Medicaid contracts and like just kind of super simple glasses. And probably about 20 years ago now, the company made a shift to do low vision and specialty type stuff.
Right.
And that's where the scientific magic of optics comes out. Because you start dealing with all your radius of curvatures and all the math stuff that you didn't really pay attention to in high school, and you're like, oh, this is what it's useful for.
Right. The specialty niche is lacking terribly. Where did you get your training? It sounds like you kind of explained that. You've literally been raised in it.
Yeah, there's that. But it was interesting because I'm probably one of the youngest people that's ever run a Strasbourg glass generator, because I remember being a kid, and my parents.
I haven't. I saw one.
Yeah. Well, I remember it was a very exciting day when we rolled that out of the business and rolled in our newer CNC equipment. But I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. What was the question, Peter?
No, the training, education.
So yeah, I do remember when I was 7 and 8, I would be calculating like seg drops and decentration for the contract work.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the simple math homework. As far as training in the last 10 or 15 years, when I've really gotten more into the specialty, there's a lot of books and a lot of I've worked a lot with research optometrists, and it's really there's a lot of really fascinating material out there on ResearchGate of ophthalmic optics. There's also some really great books published recently by the founders of IoT. The Modern Ophthalmic Optics book is fantastic. So curiosity is really the catalyst for training. Is classwork. Classwork is cool and all, but forcing yourself or being inspired to look at other stuff and see how it works. Yeah,
you took well advantage of what was at your fingertips, and I think that's huge. What would you say, when was the moment that you fell in love with opticianry? It sounds like it could be as early as 7 or 10, or I don't know. I mean,
so it's interesting because now I do have the luxury of owning my own business, which some people might consider a curse, and some days I consider it a curse. But the cool thing is that you get to be involved. That I get to be involved in all aspects of everything. Which is really neat. But product development is really exciting, and kind of helping people find solutions or find an answer when everywhere else they turn they've been gaslit and told they can't be helped. So that's really what we love doing, is finding those kind of answers is people who have been given up on, and we don't give up on them, and if they're open to be a guinea pig, I'm open to experiment on them. And it's a beautiful. So a lot of times we'll do variations of prescriptions and different curvatures, different lens designs, and that kind of stuff to try to really hone in what somebody likes if they're having a lot of trouble.
Hence the name practice. I loved the early training I had when I worked at Clark Appler Lober, and these are guys have been around doing all kinds of funky things with frames and lenses that I had no idea you could even do. They've been doing it from the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Some of these guys have been at 40, 50 years, and when I was working with them, so I get that. And this kind of explains the passion of the eye care. Do me a favor, share a quick mentor story, or kind of a story that piqued your interest to pursue even the speaking part that you're involved in now. And I think you hit on some of this before, but do you have a story that you can think of, a moment, a mentor moment? I mean, obviously your mom. There was actually
a really special. So it was right as I was taking over the business in 2013, and I was new to business. and we were having a conversation with an optometrist who owns a company that does low vision, and we were talking about some kind of product or some kind of legislation, and the and I remember saying, well, what if that happens? Like, it could put us out of business. And he's like, yeah, but it's good for the world, and if it's good for the world, I don't care. I'll just go sell ice cream on the beach. And I was like, oh yeah, like that's what we should be doing. You know, like, we should be making the world a better place rather than trying to protect our little island. And that was a seismic shift to my mindset on how to run a business. And that I carry that with me every day. Now, as far as optical mentorship, I would say that Dr. Pelly, who we've worked with a lot on research grants at Chadwick,
Awesome.
It's interesting because he's a genius. He started as an electrical engineer and kind of found his way into optometry from electrical engineering. But one of the most important things that he was telling me is that, and this, I've seen this a number of times since, but basically you're not helping the eyes, you're helping the patient.
Right.
And when the patient needs a solution, the glasses are a tool. The glasses aren't the solution.
Correct.
So that was also a mindset shift is, you know, when we talk about the lens, when we talk about the different solutions, it's like, what's the actual problem? Like, have we defined the problem appropriately that we're trying to solve?
Right.
And those two things have just completely inspired me every single day since I've heard them.
I think that's awesome. The human element is obviously what I'm immersed in, but even to this day, we make alterations to the recommendations report for those things. And it's the truth. I mean, here you are making recommendations. You and I can make an easy assumption that I like these glasses. You got to ask.
Yeah.
You gotta. That's a really basic thing, but it's an easy thing to miss, and that's not okay. You know,
yeah.
You gotta ask that. So, you know, simple things, but they're big, and it's about the people. It's about how it's impacting every human. So, hey, this was awesome. Thank you so much for this. We should podcast. I mean, if you're into it. If you don't want to do it, I get it. But
yeah, I'll go for it. I mean, it's cool when you have the questions. A lot of times on a webinar and stuff, you're just staring at a blank screen and talking to it. This is a lot more interactive. This is good.